My name is Toni Toney, artist and creator of the exhibition Life Behind the Fence, Echoes of Incarceration. These creative works are ones that are dear to me and emphasizes my experience with loved ones, friends who have been incarcerated and are a product of incarceration. I hope this exhibition changes you for the good, and I hope you are able to see the works and take that information out into the world.
Okay, so the Quilt of Humanity. Tell us about this piece. I see that it was made, you created this in 2021. Can you share with us about like your inspiration, why the various colors that you use, some of the images of the young men that you have here? Tell us about this piece.
Quilt of Humanity was created, as she said, in 2021. This piece actually took me the longest, probably 4 months to do. And not just because of other things going on in life, but this kind of spearheaded the whole show. This was the very first piece that kind of trailblazed the rest of the pieces. It was created when I was sitting at my studio and I started drawing a face, and of no particular person, but I started reflecting on all of the faces that I have encountered teaching youth, incarcerated youth at that. And they are coming in and out of my life. They all kind of run together. I try to remember the faces, which is why some faces are small and some are large, because some stand out more than others. And I just started reflecting on that, and I wanted to represent that, or each face, with a different color. The colors of the rainbow all go together. And so I wanted to kind of invoke that using warm colors and cool colors, not to indicate what they were incarcerated for, but just them being, in a sense, a quilt of different faces. Humanity has to do with they're all human, we're all human. And so that's kind of the theme of where this one came from, and again, how it kind of started everything else that followed.
Yeah, I think it's an absolutely amazing piece, especially just because you didn't put them all as brown boys. You put them, like you said, the colors of the rainbow. And why did you title it The Quilt?
Well, yeah, like I said, just like a quilt has different patches on it, different prints, different colors, I wanted to kind of invoke the same thing in the title as with the piece. And so you don't concentrate necessarily on the type of faces, but you concentrate on them just being a human being.
And kids.
And children.
Yeah, because for me, I definitely can see, and that's one thing that you'll see, in my opinion, when you go throughout the exhibit, you'll see the humanity of everyone in there, and you'll see their innocence and their redemptive qualities. So I think that's something so beautiful that Toni was able to display with her exhibit. All right, let's look at this one, The Face of Confinement from 2022.
Where I am employed, when we exit out of or off of the campus, we walk past where their dormitories are. And a lot of times they'll be outside having outside rec, and they'll be on the fence saying bye. And so this kind of is reflective of those moments when I'm leaving, knowing that I'm coming back the next day or after the weekend is over. But I wanted to show, really it was a healing, to be honest with you. This was my way of healing. And it started off with showing my students, or showing the children I come in contact with in another light. And it was really a way for me to heal.
Do you remember when you and I were talking about when I was saying what I saw when I looked at this picture?
Mm-hmm.
Being on the other side of the fence?
You can go ahead with that one, because that as an artist, we have one interpretation of our work, but the viewers might see something else. So I would love for Ossie to share what her her view of it was.
Yeah. So for me, I felt like this picture. I saw the child because he looks so small. To me, he looks like he's under the age of 10. So it brought me back to me and my sister and my brother when our mom was incarcerated. And to me, it's the child on the opposite side of the fence looking in, longing for their parent. That's what I saw. I see the orange jumpsuit, but I'm like, that could be a sweater, you know? And that's one beautiful thing about art, is that there are so many different perspectives. And it's like the Bible. It's like a two-edged sword. And you read it, and it's one thing, and then you read it the next day, and it's another thing. So I thought that was just amazing. And like when you look at his eyes, he looks very sad. And there's like a longing in him. So either way, whether he's on the inside or on the outside, he's wanting something. Mm-hmm. And you did a really great job with that.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh my, sorry, Mom. 2023. Toni, tell us about this piece. What is this reflecting to you?
Sorry, Mama comes about in different ways, and the meaning is it hits a little bit different. Being a school teacher of incarcerated youth, I'm limited to how much of their life I see. I see them as students, and I see them in a classroom. But during the pandemic, the teachers were teaching in the dormitory. And so I got to see them really in their, not homes, but where they reside. And it changed me even more, because now I see them in a different light. And so Sorry Mama comes with two different examples. It's kind of how I saw them in their cells, and then knowing that we have some students who come back to us. They've been with us for a while, and then they leave, and they come back a couple of months later, and we know that they're sorry. We know that they're sorry, and I wanted to kind of show what it looks like when they're sorry for what they've done. Mm-hmm. And so that's why the expression of his face is like that. He's relaxed, but he's uncomfortable. And so hopefully after this time, he doesn't want to come back. Maybe after this time, he doesn't want to disappoint his mom. You know, it's almost like when you have a child, you have a conversation with them so many times over and over again, but they're going to do what they're going to do because they have to live their life. They have to go on their own journey. But when they make a mistake, they realize that their parents were right.
Absolutely. Can we sit with him for a second, please?
I will also add that the mat is placed there to show we don't want them to be comfortable. We want them to be so uncomfortable that they don't come back. And maybe he forgot. maybe he forgot, and this is his second time around, and got another taste of it. And was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done.
Ooh, that's crazy. I'm not sure how many people in here can resonate with having a loved one incarcerated, especially like a son or a younger brother or a cousin. But that tells a story right there. Can you call my mama? That's my baby, my nephew Jackson. Thank you, Jackson. We're trying to reflect Jackson. Mama. Ain't that the name that so many of our children cry when something happens? Tell us about this piece. What are the colors that you use, Toni? I know it's not in color, but what is your inspiration behind this piece?
As you go through the entire show, the entire exhibition, you'll notice that a lot of the colors are a grayscale. There's not a lot of pieces, and we'll get into that in a couple more slides, but I wanted the viewer to feel cold. I didn't want to warm him up. Well, that's a lie. I did want to warm him up. I wanted to warm him up with a particular colored shirt. But my husband was like, no, leave it alone. Leave it just like that. And I was like, I don't know. I kind of want to, artistic licensing, want to be the artist. And, sometimes we have to take advice, even though we don't always feel we need to. And that was one of those times, and I'm so glad that I listened. I'm so glad that I listened. I use, one thing about a lot of these pieces is I use house paint.
Wow.
Yeah, most of these are done with house paint. And the color that I used was urban concrete.
Makes sense.
It just so happened that was the color. But I wanted to make him cold. I wanted to make him uncomfortable. And I wanted to kind of show, really with his eyes, maybe he's not supposed to be there. Maybe he's not supposed to be there. Maybe he doesn't have the verbiage to explain, so my mama needs to explain for me. Can you call my mama? She'll tell you why.
Right.
She'll tell you what happened. She'll explain for me because you're not listening to me, so can you call my mama? And a lot of times with our youth, we steal their voice. We don't give them the autonomy to say what's on their mind. So can you call my mama? Can you have her explain what's going on and speak up for me?
Yeah, and I think the truth of the matter is that no matter what happens, as long as mama or daddy or granny or auntie is around, it's good that they know that they can call us. It's a beautiful piece. Origin of incarceration, 1943.
So here's where I get vulnerable. Here's where I put all my business out there. So what year was that? It might have been 22. It might have been 2022. I was with my sisters, my mom. We were all gathered, and one of my sisters, Tari, is the family historian, and we started looking at family photos. And as we're looking at photos of my grandmother and my dad when he was younger, this small picture fell out. I said, who is this? And she said, that's our great-grandfather. I said, wait a minute. He was in jail? Like he has a mug shot? And then I started thinking I think another sister said, that's crazy how you're in jail, but you're not. And I was like, you know what? I kind of am. And this is where I started to tie my family in with incarceration, ergo echoes of incarceration, because this is the origin. Now, I don't know what he was in jail for. I don't know what he was arrested for, but just the fact that he was kind of spearhead this entire show. It was a realization that it's generational for me. It's generational. And so this is my paternal grandmother's father.
And I'm like one of those people, when I look at pictures, I look at all the details. I look at like what's behind the picture. So I'm like, oh, he's 5'8". I'm weird like that. And he's handsome. So he would have been probably like one of those mugshots that people were like, that man fine. What do you do? I might write him a letter. But I mean, yeah, it's definitely amazing how things show up in our pathology, you know? Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, so many of us cannot even trace back to our great-grandfather or
Right.
great-great-grandfather, you
Right.
know? So the fact that there's an actual picture
Exactly.
that's clear,
Exactly.
that's amazing.
And it's small.
Yeah.
It's like a little larger than a postage stamp. And so when it fell out, I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know, the fact that I even came across it, we might not even be here if I hadn't.
Wow. That's right. What up, Goo? To T-Bone. Love Goo. 2024. Miss you, fam.
Yeah.
So the Polaroids.
Yes.
Let's talk about the Polaroids.
So for a long time, I wanted to do something with Polaroids. I wanted to turn some paintings into Polaroids, and I didn't know how I was going to do it. And that came to me when I started thinking about how we're always on our phone looking at our pictures. All of our family pictures are stored on our phones. And if you lose your phone, you know, unless you have a certain type of phone,
All your pictures are gone.
they're gone, right? And that we don't have our photo albums anymore. That's how we learned about our family history, asking questions. Who is that? You know, your family stories were passed down through those photos. And so with the Polaroids, I was thinking about how I wanted to tie all of this together, especially with the familial unit.
Right.
And so I wanted to depict one of the photos that my cousin Goo sent me when he was in prison. Again, we have the family lineage. And so my family nickname is T-Bone, and I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. I'm T-Bone, okay? So my dad was Tony, and so there was two Tonys, so I was named after my father. And so that's how they separated us, was Tony and T-Bone. And so that's why it's labeled this way, because it's really to me from him. When I was younger, my cousin was in jail, and I would go visit him. And Ossie and I were talking about that, and we were talking about it, and I was saying, you know, I thought it was normal. I thought that was a normal thing to go see certain family members or whoever in jail. That was like didn't everybody? I thought that's what everybody did, you know, had one or two or however many family members, and, you know, on a Saturday you would go and see them and make sure they're okay, and then you go see them again a couple of weeks later, you know. So Goo would send me photos of him and his son when he was younger. And so as I was making the familial connection, I wanted to honor my cousin and his journey. While he was incarcerated, he's out now doing amazing. But this is one of the photos that he sent me when I told him what I was doing. And he was like, here, use this one.
Yeah.
It's kind of blurry, but see what you could do with it. So this is a goo.
Yeah. And I don't think we like really talk enough about like when our cousins go to jail and that impact, like that's messed up, you know what I'm saying? And like, I think Toni said that Goo was a few years older, so he was like her big cousin. I'm sure that she grew up kind of respecting him and being like real cool with him. And so like when they're gone, you're like, dang, Goo ain't, you know?
Right, and that was at a time when I was a late teenager.
Right.
You know, so I didn't have him around to tell me certain things to watch out for and all of that, so.
I mean, like our cousins are like our first best friends,
Right.
our siblings, you know, sometimes our parents, you know, depending on the age range. So good for Goo for doing what he got to do now. And Toni, I did notice that you did what your husband didn't want you to do to this photo. You put the color on the shirt.
Right, so with the Polaroid series, all of the skin tones are the same. But the color is on the shirt. And then you have the urban concrete in the background.
Yeah, and I know people will probably get a chance to see it if they haven't already. Can we talk a little bit about the one where you had the background with the
color?
The color.
So when you go through the gallery and you look at the Polaroid series and you see the prison poses, or air quotes, the prison poses, there's only one of the Polaroids that is in color. And somebody asked me, you know, it seems, it's odd that that one is in color. And so I had to explain to them that in the prison photos now, they give you a backdrop. And the backdrop is of a scene at the beach or somewhere else, so that when the family takes those photos home, that they're not necessarily reminded where they actually were, but they're in their, I don't want to call it uniform, but they're in their prison clothes, you know. So that's one of the most recent photos. A friend of mine that's actually a friend of mine who is incarcerated now in Pelican Bay. And so that's why that one is in color.
Yeah. Wow. Let's sit with this next photo for a moment. Running from it will not save you. So this was one of Toni's first installation pieces. Let's talk about everything with this. What is the it? What is the motivation? And why the shoes?
Okay, let's start with
the slides.
Let's start with the slides. Why the slides first, and where did I get them from? I got them out the trash. I got them out the trash. I saw the shoes, and as an artist, sometimes you see things, and you're not sure what you're going to make of it, but you know you're going to use it. And so when I saw the condition of the shoes in the trash, I said, I don't know what I'm going to turn it into, but I'm going to turn it into something. And the more I looked at the slides, as Ossie and I were talking the other day, she's like, you can't run in slides. I was like, you're right, you can't run in slides. But I was thinking, those that wear these shoes, a lot of times they're in situations that they have not yet faced. That they are essentially running away from something or running to something, right? The title of it, Running From It Will Not Save You, comes from a poem entitled See It Through. And it's one of the last stanzas of it. It says, running from it will not save you. See it through. The it, I can't define what the it is because everyone's it is different. Everyone's it is different. But I wanted to show a figure in a running position, but also if you notice the color of the slides change. That the head and the hands and the feet are brown, but the body of it is orange. Shout out to my sister Terry. She's like, why don't you just do it that way? And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's amazing. When I saw it, I was like, ooh, chills.
But I think that's another thing about having certain pieces that the public doesn't necessarily know exist. This may be your very first time seeing prison slides. You know, so now you can make a connection. You can read something in a magazine, you can read something online, but when you see it hits you different.
That's right. So before we just move on further, can you tell us, if there are any, about some of the specific challenges you had when pulling all this inspiration and all these pieces together?
I think it was, what narrative do I want to tell? How much transparency do I want to show? And I put it all out. You know, for those that are able to see the exhibition, you'll know that I have a letter from my dad to my sister Tori when he was in jail. And I questioned myself, like, do I really want to put that out there? And I realized that I needed to tell my story. I needed to tell my truth. I needed to tell my story. But as we've been talking, it's not just my story. So many people have DM'd me, have called me, have pulled me to the side and shared their stories of their brother or their uncle or their son has been incarcerated. And that this particular, these works of art are actually helping them.
That's right.
You know, in a sense, the same way it helped me get it out. Get it out, talking about or showing my life behind the fence when I go to work every day. It's what I see, it's what I maneuver with, it's what I have to leave there and then go home and live life and then go right back. I have to get myself in a certain mental space, and you know, some of us have whatever activities that we need to do to separate work from home, and I needed to do that through my art.
Yeah. What keeps you motivated to continue to create?
This particular series, or just create in general?
Well, this one and in general.
I still have things that I want to say through my art. Art has always been in me since I can remember, you know, always being a creative child and really not having the, what do you call it? I didn't have the guts to put my stuff out there. I didn't feel secure enough. I didn't feel like my work was good enough to put it out there, but I would still do it. I was still kind of creative, you know, but I think like with all of us, we have gifts. And even though we don't always choose to use those gifts, it's gonna come out one way or another. You might be in a meeting and your leadership skills like boom, but you don't want to be in the spotlight. You don't want to be in the front, but you get put in certain situations, it's gonna come out. And so don't play Pictionary with me.
Right. I mean, and we definitely talked about how, like you were saying, that you didn't always feel, or you couldn't find your voice, and you were kind of like burying it.
Right.
At what point did you really figure out and accept the fact that you are an artist, that you do this, and that you are great at it?
Thank you. You know what? Again, full transparency. It wasn't until recently. I've been in education for almost 20 years, and I always introduced myself as an art teacher, because it was safe. It was safe to say I'm an art teacher. I help younger people and adults find their artistic voice. But it took years before I said, Toni Toney, I'm an artist. Period.
Let's go to the next piece.
Okay.
Life ain't no crystal stair.
2021.
2021. After the pandemic.
After the pandemic. Story time. So this one was also reflective of how I was feeling at work. Or not necessarily how I was feeling, how I was interpreting my students. So this is almost along the same lines of Sorry Mama, right? We're losing a lot of our youth. We are losing a lot of our youth. And a lot of times, many of our students who leave us also leave this world. And when we find out, this is the face of some of the students that are still with us when they find out. A tear is falling. He's emotional, but he's not letting out his anger, his frustration, his sadness. And so that's how Life Ain't No Crystal Stair, which is adapted from the Langston Hughes poem, Mother to Son, came about. But we have another story, Ossie, about this one.
So I had a friend who was here when Toni was working on the pieces before they were even in the museum. And we were like, yeah, you definitely gotta go see this. But time just was not on our side, and they weren't from here. So he ended up leaving and not seeing the pieces. As time would have it, he ended up coming back with a group of people. And I was like, look, the art exhibit is up. We have to go today. Like, you have to see Toni's piece, because he is someone who was actually previously incarcerated, has turned over a brand new leaf, is an amazing man, an amazing black man. His name is Taylor Paul. You can look him up. So Taylor Paul and I and three other gentlemen came to the exhibit. It was just the four of us at the time. Or the five of us rather, at the time. And when he saw this picture, he literally froze. And he broke down in tears, because his story was that he had two sons that followed him, in incarceration. And one of them, unfortunately, is no longer with us due to suicide. And that's him. He pulled out a picture of his son and was like, Ossie, look, that's my boy. That's my boy right there. Yep. I was like, and I'm like getting chills as I'm talking about it, because I was like, dang. And so when he showed me the picture, I was like, ugh, that's so crazy, because the eyes, the nose, the mouth looked exactly like his son. And he was in tears. Like, he was messed up the whole time. I called Toni. I was like, Toni, Taylor's here. Can you please come down? And like, Toni was not too far away. And she came over just to kind of like see him, because she had met him before too. And they just had a moment. He called his child's mother. What did she say?
I think she was taken back.
Because he sent her the picture.
Because he sent his son's mother a picture of the painting. And I was taken back. I didn't know how to receive it. I was like, what do you mean that's your son? He was like, that's my boy.
Yep.
That's my, you painted my boy right there. And he was like, you don't understand what you did.
Yeah.
you don't understand what you did. And then he showed me the picture and I was speechless. I didn't have the words. I was like, oh my God, how are the two connected? But to put it all together, shout out to Kevin King, who got the work framed. I had no handling on that. But I love how it is framed because it's almost like, it's a very ornate frame. It's big and heavy. And I associate that with like royalty,
Yes.
in a sense. And so when Taylor saw the piece, he kept saying, you don't get it. You don't get it. He said, my son's name is King. And I said, oh, chills. Chills.
Yeah.
And so again, it goes in, that story goes deeper than surface, right? But it's also an ode to, again, us who have dealt with loved ones who have been incarcerated.
Yeah.
You know, and for him, I don't know what the message was for him. I don't know. That's for him to say, and I'm sure, you know, for him it's very personal, you know, what he may have been going through that particular day, and then his son just shows up.
Yep.
Out the blue.
Yep.
So
I think he needed that. I mean, he literally cried over that photo.
He did.
He was standing there crying. It was
He
crazy.
did.
Because at the end of the day, let's go back. Right here. We be kings. We be princes. And that is something, I have 2 sons and I have a daughter. And I've always taught them that you are a king, you are a prince. Act accordingly. Unfortunately, that's not something that always happens, but if you look at this picture, you see your son, you see your cousin, you see your little
nephew,
brother, your nephew, your baby, somebody that you love, your friend. And they deserve to live. One thing that I was so impressed with these pieces, all of them, again, is that Toni shows the innocence that still lives within them. She shows their humanity. And she shows that they can be redeemed. These are our brothers, our babies, our children. They're us. Lord have mercy. Sorry, Mama. I want to do something. So the last piece that we saw with the tear, one thing that I saw, again, for me, perspective, I see the tears of a child whose parent is incarcerated or somebody that they love very much is incarcerated and they're crying out for them. But I wanted to read Mother to Son, and I'm having some personal things going on right now with my son. It's weird. And when I first came to the exhibit, my son had gotten in trouble and arrested the day before. So I was deep in the fields. And when I saw Sorry Mama, I was like, oh, crying, literally tears, because I was so hurt and I was so angry. It was more anger than it was hurt, though. Because there are pleas that go unheard as a mom and as a parent and as a brother to some young children, and you don't know why. You can't explain it because there's no reason for it. So I want to read this, and I want to dedicate this to all the mothers, the fathers, the loved ones who pleas seem to have been unheard. They hear them, they just ain't listening. Mother to Son. Well, son, I tell you, life ain't been no crystal stair. It had tacks in it and splinters and boards torn up and places with no carpet on the floor, bare. But all the time, I've been a climbing on and reaching landings and turning corners, and sometimes going in the dark where there ain't been no light. So boy, don't you turn back. Don't you sit down on the steps, 'cause you finds it's kinda harder. Don't you fall now, for I still going, honey. I still climbing. And life for me ain't been no crystal stair. And that's the truth.
Thank you, Ossie.
Ooh, child. Ooh. Thank you, Toni. I mean, I just can't say enough. So, what happens to a dream deferred?
Yet to be seen.
Yeah.
It has yet to be seen.
Oh, well, y'all, we have come to the end of our portion. Toni, is there anything else you would like to share or add with our audience before we move on to the next phase?
No, because I think that I'm going to be able to answer all the questions and all the comments in a second.
Yeah.
Again, this is my heart and soul on the other side of this wall.
Mm-hmm.
It challenged me. It pushed me. Looking at the show taught me that I'm able to do more than what I believe. Yeah.
And I think that's like a message for all of us. I think we limit ourselves in so many different ways. And in my opinion, that's a form of imprisonment. Like we're locked up in our own minds because we refuse to release ourselves.
Right.
So, me, at this big age, 42 I am, I'm still learning stuff about myself. And I'm still trying to like discover who I am and let go of fear. So again, Toni, thank you, thank you, thank you. You're an amazing person, a beautiful friend. I'm so honored to be sitting before you all in this seat with her. And I will go ahead and open it up for questions from the audience.
Thank you, Ossie.
If you want me to go down there, I don't mind going there.
You can.
I'll come down to you.
Watch your step.
And if anyone has any questions, oh, thank you. I will come to you. Anybody?
Good evening, Toni. Thank you for this beautiful gallery.
Thank you.
I was curious for the piece Life Ain't No Crystal Stair and the anecdote that was shared about the gentleman that came and said, "That's my boy." My artist brain went, wait a minute, did you use like a photo reference that turned out to be his son? Or like, did you have was it just like an uncanny resemblance, or did he?
It definitely was an uncanny resemblance. The photo that he had showed Ossie and I, he cropped it so that we saw half the face. And so, as you can see, it's not the full face, but he already made the connection like that looks just like my son. And so when he cropped his photo, his son's photo, it looked just like him.
Wow.
And this actually, this work, and I meant to say it earlier, was a challenge because it's done with chalk pastel. So there's no paint on it, so it's a drawing. So that was another challenge, which
That's incredibly impressive.
I actually loved because you're using your hands. You get dirty. You get to blend with your hands and everything. So yeah, that's actually a chalk pastel piece.
Just another note on the artwork, I also noticed that the tear is almost implied. It's like you see the start of it coming out of the eye, but you don't see like the shadow of the tear on the cheek. And it's kind of like, it makes me feel this sense of loss because it's like his tear dried up before it could even fall.
Almost like he was trying to hold it in. Don't let that tear fall. Don't let him see you cry. Don't let them see you cry.
Wow.
Period.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you so much for your work, Tony. I was just wondering about your thoughts, and I mean, I don't know if you identify as, women, all these things, but I think as Black women, we tend to bear witness to some of the dangers of like toxic patriarchy and how it shows up, especially through the penal system. So I'm wondering, because even in some of the captions, it's like, "I'm sorry, mama," it shows it shows feeling, you know what I'm saying? Which when you think about like prison and stuff like that, people may disassociate feelings from people, right? Or like just looking at them as numbers. And I'm just interested to hear some of your thoughts around that balance of, the divine dance between femininity and masculinity through some of your art.
I love that question.
Great question, thank you. I think that it's a fine line when you're looking at the prison system and femininity and masculinity, because I'm teaching boys, and I'm teaching boys that a lot of times come from homes where their fathers weren't present, or if they were in and out of their lives. And so my students are around a lot of women, and they're teenagers, and they adopt us as their moms. And so, "I'm sorry, mama" may not always be for their maternal mother. It may be for the woman in their life that they've adopted as their mother. He could have gotten a fight over the weekend, and he's in the cell for punishment, and he's not going to see his mama the next day.
I'm gonna go there and okay. Tony, while I'm walking over there, that was one thing that I noticed. Was there a reason why you chose to use images and portrayals of men as opposed to women as well?
I was painting what I know.
That's right.
I don't know no women in prison. If I did, that would have been my experience. You know what? Let me back up, because full transparency. My mother, as a student at UCLA, I'm telling her business, was at UCLA, and she was pregnant with me. And my mother was arrested and put in jail while she was pregnant with me for parking tickets. So again, I was incarcerated in utero.
Yep.
In utero. So.
Thank you for this lovely installation. It's really moving. And thank you for your transparency, your honesty, and putting it out there. On the image about life for me ain't been no crystal stair, or no crystal stair. Did you think about the double meaning of stair when you did that? Because that's all I've been thinking about. S-T-A-R-E. I just wondered if that came up in your mind as you were doing this and as you were framing it.
It hadn't. A lot of times when I'm doing a work, I don't always know the title until I sit with it for a while. But I love that the audience or the viewer can get something else, because now you're teaching me another way of looking at the piece. So when I now share my work with the public, it's nice to get that interpretation of what they see. So thank you.
Yeah, and it goes back to the reminder that pay attention to the eyes. The eyes are the windows to the soul.
That's right.
So look at their eyes.
That's right.
Got a question over here.
What's up, sis?
Hey, bro.
I was wondering whether or not you have, and if you have, what are the responses from some of your students? Have they been able to see any of the pictures that you've done? What do they have to say?
So when Mackenzie went on WSFA and was talking about the show and promoting the show, I played it for them. And they said, "You famous?" I said, no, I'm local. I'm a local celebrity, I guess. I was able to show them the slideshow. And again, being an art teacher, I dabble. I don't show what I do, but I did today actually. And I showed them the PowerPoint, and I think they respect me a little bit more. They were like, oh wow, you did that? Like you did all of these? I did. But they know that, they know the theme of the show. And I had to explain to them what my story is. And it goes back to my view on how adults don't tell their children or tell the youth the truth or everything. They water it down. I want you to know that my great-grandfather was incarcerated. My father was in jail. My mother had been arrested. My cousins. But look where I am. Did I make it? Yeah. Did they when they came out? And that's just their story? You being where you are doesn't define you.
That's right.
It just moves you closer to where you're supposed to be. And that's what I tell them.
Hello, Toni.
Where am I? Oh.
And thank you again for this beautiful art. It's art, but it's also an education. So thank you for this wonderful education. When I first met you 3 or 4 years ago in the Botanical Gardens, you brought many pieces of art from your students. And first of all, you just got you're so intertwined into this incarceration education. And all the stories that you've told here with your mom, your great-grandfather, I mean, you're just surrounded by this stuff.
Right.
So it's only natural that you do this. So my question is, when will you have an exhibit of your students' work, which is your work because you're teaching them? So will you have a all-around complete art exhibit of everybody's work?
Well, currently, 10 of my students have work at the Montgomery Museum of Fine Arts. Their work was in a juried exhibition, and so it wasn't, they earned that spot. But I do my best to showcase the talents that they have. Unfortunately, our welding teacher passed away earlier this year, and so the work that he had done with our students was amazing. And again, it's just a testament to the talent that we have behind the fence and the talent of educators that we have that are also behind the fence working with the students. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Toni.
Hi.
It's a quick question that I actually have not grilled you on or asked you before.
Okay.
But it just kind of spun from the questions in the room, especially from the young lady. This seems like we talked about this, I think it's a series, right? I feel like it is a series of education.
Yeah.
And so something that you just hit on is looking at your story more. Is you're telling the story, but to show a light of, although this is your background, look where you are now, and to show that story of what does it look like coming out of incarceration.
Right.
So my question to you is, how are you looking at this as a series? Are you looking at continuing as a series to tell various angles of the echoes of incarceration, not just what it looks like behind the fences, but what it looks like when you come out of the fence as well?
I think that's a great question. Because this was more of a healing for me, I didn't know how far it was going to go. As an artist, the work is never done. The work tells you what it wants to do. And again, as I said earlier, I didn't realize that it wasn't just my story that I was telling, that it's many other people's story, who I'm telling. And so I can't say for certain how far this is going to go. It's not done. You know, it's already a series. And I'm okay with you guys asking questions about works that's not in the slideshow. But either one of those I can take in a direction. You know, I think it's just, as an artist, not forcing it. Okay, I did this. I want to stay in this lane for a while. I'm still speaking my truth, and I'm still showing what my experiences have been. So.
Hi, Toni.
Hi.
I just want to say this was a tremendous exhibit. One of the pieces on the other side of the wall was shackles and mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate on that? Just from my perspective, it always remind me of when going to prison. I've never been to prison. I've been around the prison system since I was 11 when my brother was incarcerated. And then after 20 years, he was released, my nephew went in. And that's another 40 years that I'm doing on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing those shackles in that mirror reminds me of the time that we have to do on the outside. That's on the inside. So can you elaborate on that?
That piece is called Reflection. And when I did it, when I was going into the units where the students live, it's like, there are no mirrors. There's no mirrors in here. So it's like, as they're aging, they don't know what they're looking like as they age. On my desk, I have a mirror.
Wow.
And every day they come up to my desk. Now, you're not supposed to go on the teacher's desk. But the mirror is mine and theirs, because I want them to see how they're growing. I want them to see their own reflection, right? Sometimes we got to hype ourselves up when we stand in the mirror and we give ourselves affirmations, right? With that, that's one aspect of the mirror. But for those of us who have never been incarcerated, we don't know what we would look like behind bars. And so that's why the handcuffs are hanging the way that they are, and the mirrors behind them, because I want the viewer to see their own reflection. And then as you're looking at it, your rear view are the Polaroids. And I will say that that is also my cousin, Jonathan.
Hey, cuz.
But he's never been incarcerated. Any other questions?
Yeah. Over there. Get my walks in today, my steps. Here you go.
Hello, Toni.
Hello.
Congratulations to Dwight on his first art installation. So my question is, you work behind bars on a daily basis. I get the opportunity to work with young people. In your opinion, when you talk to them, what's the answer? Because we see all these images that you painted. We see them in the newspaper every day.
Yeah.
The same pictures we see them. And I
Right.
think we're becoming callous to those pictures.
Right.
So you, in your opinion, what's the answer? And I just saw Mayor Reed walk in. We had a town hall meeting. This was the question. Everybody has their opinions about how to fix the. So
I'm calling our mayor.
I didn't call him out, but I'm just saying.
I'm calling him out.
Well, I'm gonna throw it back to you. I think we need more valiant crosses.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious. I'm gonna throw it back to you. And here's why. Here's why. We can only show them so much, but we have to lead by example. Art can do some things. It can do a lot. But when they leave me and they develop the skill and these accolades saying that they got their work at the Montgomery Museum of Fine Arts in a juried exhibition, but when they go out, what do they have?
So I'm gonna throw it back to you. And say, since the majority of our kids
Yeah.
will never come there to that school, you tell me, what is your opinion when you're talking to them? What is it that we're missing on the outside, because it's just the problem is, I always say it's systemic. It's so many other things. Like, how in the world do we have all those faces on that first picture you just showed, and the number keeps growing? So that's my question, I guess.
Popular but unpopular opinion. Most of my students are in there with gun charges. It's a status symbol for them. They are being raised in this microwave society. They want it quick, and whatever way that they need to get it is how they get it. They don't think about consequences. We know science, their brains aren't wired that way yet. But they also don't have a strong support system to continue to gear them in the right direction. On the other side, they have adults in their lives who gear them in that direction. You know, I have a student that I came in contact with who, amazing kid, and they're all amazing. They're all absolutely amazing, but it was an adult that they were with, which is why they came to us, right? So it's twofold. So I guess the short answer is it takes a village, but that village has to be on the same accord. You can't have a whole village and half of them are dummies. It's what it is, and it's why we're in the place that we are now. But yeah, we still need more valiant crosses.
Please.
Amen.
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 Amen. And can I add to that too? In terms of what are we supposed to do, I think that because I'm dealing with some stuff with my child, and he's a young adult, just turned 18, and he's just giving us the business.
Yeah.
But I think as parents, we have to be wise enough to know that sometimes we don't have all the answers. And that we do need to take advantage of our village and the people around us that really love and care about our children to also pour into them as well. Because sometimes it's just not enough.
Right.
Like, we want to believe we have it all, and we've done it all right, and we have for the most part, but they have aunts and uncles and family friends and stuff like that for a reason, and coaches and principals and teachers.
Yeah, we want to pour into them as much as we can, but when they leave us, we have to trust that they're going to stay on the right road, that they're going to make the right decisions, and they're going to do what's right. And sometimes, obviously, that they don't, but maybe it's just that one time. Maybe it was just that one mess up, and now you're back on the right track because you learned your lesson. And maybe I'll do another piece, learn my lesson.
Ooh, I like that. Do we have any other questions from the audience?
I need a microphone. I just want
We need it for the video. Okay. Sorry. Our comments too. Feel free to give her flowers.
I just want to thank you for the work that you do and walking in your purpose. I know you were nervous, but I just look at you now more of an artist instead of just my cousin.
That's right.
And I
That's
love
another
you.
cousin. Thank you.
Shout out to cousin for coming all the way from Missouri.
From Missouri and Louisiana.
In Louisiana. Oh, you got a question? Okay. Also, shout out to Mayor Reed for being here. Y'all, this is our mayor, Sister Reed.
Oh, well, in dealing with such a heavy topic as incarceration and then doing the work on the inside, how do you maintain your spirit? How do you stay positive when doing something so heavy?
Ooh. If you didn't come with that deep question, come on.
Woosah.
It's the back row. Right. Thank you.
I've been out there 10 years, and I've seen a lot. I've adopted a lot. I learned in the beginning to leave it at the gate. I learned from the beginning to leave it at the gate and to do my absolute best not to bring it home. But it's hard. It's very hard. It's hard not to do that. And I think I can't say necessarily that's the same with any profession. You know, we tend to bring some work home, but this is different. And so we have to, those of us that are out there have to make a very conscious decision to disconnect. And so when I come into work, I know I'm on go, right? And then while I'm at work, I pour all of me into them. But when I leave, I know I have to pour back into myself and into my family, which is not always easy. And so I guess I don't have the answer yet as far as like protecting my spirit. This whole series was therapeutic for me. So I guess to answer your question, it was to paint how I feel.
Amazing. Oh, you have a question?
So what was your, oh, I'm sorry. What was your most challenging piece or pieces?
Go to Face of Incarceration. Oh, can you go to that slide?
And then the second part is, what was the piece that came the most natural, or?
I think the Polaroids were the most natural because I knew I wanted to redo, you know, those images that I saw, you know, growing up looking at photo albums. But this one, Face of Confinement, is a mixed media piece. It's also chalk. And there's papers and words that are up underneath. But my mom was here a couple of weeks ago for the artist reception. And so she was saying, oh my gosh, you know, I knew you were talented, but I didn't know you were that talented. And I'm like, you know, whatever. But I said, you know, everything has a meaning. And with this one, there are strips of a book that are plastered on there, and the book was Peter Pan. Because I wanted to show he's missing his youth. He's lost his youth being behind that fence. And so this one also took a while because I was building up the layers, and I was very strategic on the mark making that was also done in the background, and the making sure the fence didn't look odd, and the highlights and the shadows with the fence, and how half of his eye is missing. And again, this is also chalk. This is pastel. And so it's smearing on areas I didn't want it to, just on a application process. This was probably the most challenging one.
I want to ask this question. Hopefully, it's not too intimate. Having so many lives that you touch and been a part of, and then being males, and then your family, and then having a son. How do you find that balance with what you do at work, what you're showing in your work, how you create it emotionally, like you said, leaving it at home, and then still, you know, raising a young man that you have at home?
At the end of the day, they're still boys, my students. Most of them made one mistake, and this is where they sent them. And I see them as my sons, my kids, is what I call them. I think I'm harder on my son than I probably would be because of where I work. But at the end of the day, I know he is a boy, and I know that he's doing boy things just like my students do boy things. But they also keep me up to date on what's happening. So, you know, they say, you know, your son doing this shit? So it's a twofold. You know, it's the rapport. Again, it's the rapport that I have with them. So I feel comfortable discussing certain things with them the same way that they do with me because they respect me. You know, but I do think sometimes I'm harder on my son, then I probably would. He's shaking his head. But I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's going to benefit him because I can see things before he will. Right? You know, like, oh, your son, if he doing this, I'm like, nah, he's not doing that. I ain't gotta worry about that. But yeah, I think it helps. You know, even though I am a little bit harder on him, I think it helps.
Are there any other questions? Oh, hold on. Okay, we got time for, who else has questions? Raise your hands. I know. We got time for
I think
two?
we can do a few more.
Okay, a few more.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dwight Toney. First, I want to, give praises and shout outs to a few people that's in here. Kalanji, Milton, Brock, Kevin King. You all inspired Toni a lot. She talks about you all a lot. A lot. Not in a bad way, guys. And I just want to say thank you for giving her space. Brock, you do so much for this community. I need to definitely, when you showed us that space, I was like, what the world am I about to get into? And I, spent that money trying to make sure she had that safe space, and I want to say thank you so much for that, for what you do, not just for Toni, but for artists. Also Michelle, I don't know, she's here, Michelle Brown. The collab, just thank you for giving her that space, that artistic space, and allowing her to be creative. And I want to say, babe, you did a great job. Thank you.
That's right.
So I'll piggyback on that. Like, a lot of people need a village. A lot of people need a village, people that they can confide in, like-minded individuals, whatever your lane is. You have to have that village to thrive, because when you are out there by yourself, like, no man should be an island. Find your village. Find your village. A good one, though. Yep. A good one.
Okay.
I just wanted to say thank you for the exhibit and giving these voices who don't have a voice at the moment a chance to be seen and be heard and be humanized. That first piece with the quilt shows that there's a lot of people probably in this room that have never seen people incarcerated or have been behind the wall or know anyone. So when they see the shower shoes, they have no idea. When they see those long shackles come out, they don't know what it means. But these boys are still human and still have a voice and still have to go on to be productive in society, or so we hope. So, but seeing this gives them that humanity back. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. After this, we can do one more?
This one? One more after this? Okay.
What's up, Toni?
Hey.
Alright, so I love this show. I don't know how many times I told you I love the show. And the quilts always remind me of my nephews. I got a total of probably 13 nephews, and I got a brother that recently just passed, and throughout his life from 16 up until a couple months ago in April till he passed, he's been in and out of jail, been to prison, and I, like when I see that image, it reminds me so much of my nephews because they following exactly in his footsteps. I just told you recently, he was admitted in one of the juvenile detention centers, and this show it hits home for me so much because of my family and my brothers, and it just.
Oh my dear.
It just I just don't want to see my nephews go in the same drinking than my brother did. I love my brother a lot. And
We love you. We love you, Lydell.
I love you, Lydell. That's why this exhibition is so important. That's why my dream is for this show to travel. To travel, because I think so. It's a story that needs to be told. There's so many Lydells in this room that just haven't said anything yet, right? There's a lot of Tonys in this room. There's a lot of Ossies in this room. And art is so important. It's the visuals. It's storytelling. For those that have not had the experiences that we have, it's a way for us, for our stories to be told and to continue to be told and to be shared. And so the entire time the exhibition has been up, I've asked, I need you to go see the show and tell me what you think about it. I don't necessarily want the accolades. It's the work that's more important to me. It's that the stories be told and then told again and then told again. And so that's why it's so important to share what you've seen, share what you've heard, repost. And if you know somebody somewhere, let them know that I'm trying to get this show to go somewhere else.
Toni, tell us again, what's the last day of this exhibit?
The show will end on July the 17th, so a week from today, I believe. And the museum hours are from 9 to 5, I believe.
Is that right? Okay.
With the hour closed for lunch. But it's
From
on
12 to 1.
12 to 1. It's on the door if you need a reminder.
Okay. I believe those are all the questions that we have from the audience.
Well, thank you. Oh, one more. Un más. Un más.
Here, let me walk off. You're so funny.
Wild card question here.
Go for it.
Just
Go
throwing
for
it
it.
out.
Go ahead.
When you hear the words, doing the work that you do, when you hear the words defund the police, just interested, what are your thoughts and how does that,
I think that's subjective because my experience with law enforcement is not everybody else's experience. I'm not from here originally, but my experience with law enforcement here in Montgomery is way different than it was growing up in Cali. So if I was still in Cali talking about defund the police, my perspective would be different, right? Here in Montgomery, I don't have that's not my reality, right? So again, it's subjective to what your experiences are with law enforcement to really be able to answer that question. Because like I said, in LA, it's...
I believe we would be absolutely remiss if we didn't open up the floor to our mayor. If you would like to say anything, Mayor Reed? Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
You know you're a very busy man. So the fact that you're here is very important. So at this time, I don't think we have any other questions from the audience.
You want to go to that very last slide? Thank you for coming. God bless. Good night.
This one?
One more.
Keep going. That one?
One more. One more.
Thank y'all for coming. That one? Keep going. Oh, okay.
All right.
There we go.
Is that it? Okay. Thank you all. Thank you.
And also, before you all leave, thank you so much to the Rosa Parks Museum for allowing this exhibit to live here for the last month and a half. Y'all have a wonderful day. Be safe out there.